She knew it was wrong the moment his lips brushed her neck, but she didn't pull away. One quiet night, an unexpected kiss from her stepson shattered every line she thought she'd never cross. Now, a storm of forbidden feelings, unresolved pasts, and one shocking message threatened to change everything. What happens when guilt, desire, and secrets collide under the same roof? And just when she thought the worst was over, she texted. "Stay with me, because this isn't just a love story, it's a line between right and wrong that's about to snap. You won't believe what happens next." It started with a moment I should have stopped, but didn't. I told myself it was wrong. I told him too. But sometimes, words aren't enough to stop what's already in motion. The house was quiet that night, the kind of silence that made you notice every little thing. The soft hum of the fridge. The faint rustle of leaves outside. And the way his presence felt different, closer, heavier, like something had shifted between us. My stepson had been staying with us for a few weeks, after moving back in to sort out some things in his life. We had always gotten along, shared casual laughs over dinner, and helped each other out with the little things. But lately, there was something in his eyes that lingered a little too long. Something that made my skin prickle when he was near. I brushed it off at first. Told myself I was imagining it. That it was just the stress talking. But deep down, I knew something was changing. That night, I had just finished cleaning up the kitchen when he walked in. He leaned on the counter, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. There was a tension in the air, unspoken, charged. I told him it was getting late, that he should get some sleep. He didn't move. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice low, asking if I was okay. I nodded, but my heart was racing. And then he reached out, his hand brushing a strand of hair from my neck, and his lips followed. I said it's wrong, I whispered. But I didn't move away. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was loneliness. Or maybe it was something I hadn't dared to admit before. All I know is, I didn't stop him. I stood there frozen, heart thudding in my chest. His lips barely brushed my skin, but the heat of it lingered like a warning. Or maybe it was a question, one I wasn't ready to answer. I pulled away just enough to look at him, trying to find the right words, something that would bring us back to normal. But what is normal, really, when the lines are already blurred? He didn't say anything, just looked at me like he was waiting to see if I'd pull back completely or lean in again. I didn't do either. I just stared at him, seeing him differently than I had before. This wasn't the same boy who used to leave dishes in the sink or forget to call when he was out late. He had grown into someone more confident, more aware, someone who now looked at me like he understood the silence between us. I turned away, pretending to busy myself with the dishes still sitting in the rack. My hands were shaking. He stepped back finally, giving me space, but the weight of what just happened didn't leave the room. It clung to the air, heavy and complicated. I told myself it was just a moment, a lapse. That I'd talk to him in the morning, clear the air, set boundaries. But even as I stood there in the kitchen, pretending nothing happened, I couldn't forget the way he looked at me. Like he knew something I wasn't ready to face. And deep down, I was scared he might be right. The next morning, everything felt off. The house was still, but not in the peaceful way it usually was. More like we were both holding our breath, waiting for the other to say something first. I kept my routine the same: coffee, toast, morning news playing low in the background, but I couldn't shake the feeling of him just a room away, probably thinking about what had happened. I was too. When he finally walked into the kitchen, he gave me a quiet morning and went straight for the fridge. No eye contact, no mention of last night. But his shoulders were tense, and I could feel that same energy between us, unspoken but loud. I wanted to ask him what he was thinking, but I didn't know how. I didn't know if I even wanted to hear the answer. Later that day, his father called, checking in from his business trip. I kept my voice steady, talked about groceries, weather, everything safe. But inside, guilt twisted in my stomach. Because while I was chatting with my husband like everything was fine, I could still feel the warmth of his son's breath on my skin. And it wasn't just that moment that haunted me. It was all the little ones leading up to it. The late-night talks, the way he started helping out more, how he'd sometimes look at me when he thought I wasn't watching. I kept asking myself, had I let this happen? Or had I just ignored what was already there? The days that followed were a blur of avoidance and glances that said too much. We kept our conversations short, polite, like we were strangers walking a tightrope in our own home. But the tension never left. It clung to every shared space, the kitchen, the hallway, the living room where we used to sit comfortably, now too quiet. I caught him watching me more than once, eyes lingering just a second too long before he looked away. And I hated that part of me noticed. Worse, that part of me didn't mind. One evening, I was folding laundry in the guest room, his room now, when he walked in. I froze, unsure if I should stay or go. He didn't say a word, just stood in the doorway with that unreadable look again. My hands trembled slightly as I picked up another shirt, pretending to be busy. But then he stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. The soft click of it made my heart pound. He walked closer, slow and deliberate, until I could feel his presence behind me. My breath caught in my throat. Everything in me screamed this shouldn't be happening, but I didn't move. The air between us felt heavy, thick with all the things we hadn't said. Just as I was about to turn around, the doorbell rang, sharp, unexpected, and jarring enough to break whatever was about to happen. We both froze. He stepped back, quickly, like reality had snapped him out of whatever he was thinking. I dropped the shirt and moved past him without a word, my heart racing. At the front door stood Lisa, his ex-girlfriend. She looked surprised to see me, then smiled like she knew something I didn't. "I hope it's okay I stopped by," she said, glancing over my shoulder. "He hasn't been answering my texts." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and stepped aside. He appeared in the hallway behind me, face unreadable, but I caught the flicker of emotion in his eyes, shock, maybe guilt. Lisa looked at him with the kind of familiarity that made my stomach twist. She walked in like she still belonged, brushing past me like I wasn't even there. As they talked quietly in the living room, I stood in the kitchen, my hands gripping the counter. Every word they exchanged felt like it chipped away at the strange, tangled connection I'd tried so hard to ignore. But the part that hit hardest was realizing he hadn't completely let go of her. Maybe he never had. Maybe I'd been nothing more than a mistake he didn't know how to undo. And yet, something told me this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning, everything came to a head. Lisa had left late the night before, and he didn't come back downstairs after she was gone. I couldn't sleep. My thoughts were spiraling, shame, confusion, questions I didn't want answers to. I needed clarity. I needed the truth, even if it hurt. I found him in the backyard, sitting on the porch steps with a coffee in his hands. The way he looked at me was different, calmer, like he'd made a decision. I sat beside him, not saying anything at first. Then I asked the one thing I'd been avoiding, "What are we doing?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, "I didn't ask her to come. I haven't been with her in months. But I needed to see how it felt." And I realized something. I wasn't confused about her. I was confused about you. My breath caught. He went on, saying he knew it was complicated, that it had to stop, but that stopping didn't erase what had already happened. I agreed. It was time to draw a line. A real one. But just as I stood to go back inside, he called after me. Before you go, there's something else. She's pregnant. Lisa. She told me last night. And she says it's mine. Everything froze. The tension, the questions, all of it collapsed into something heavier. Final. I didn't know what to say, only that the story I thought I was living had changed in an instant. I stood there for a long moment, the weight of his words settling in like fog. Pregnant. Lisa. His. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just nodded, like my body already understood what my heart hadn't caught up to yet. This was the end of whatever had been building between us. No more blurred lines. No more quiet glances or long silences filled with questions. Reality had made the choice for us. He looked at me, maybe expecting anger, maybe hoping for understanding. All I could give was honesty. You need to be there for her. For the baby. That's your future now. He nodded slowly, and there was something in his eyes of regret, maybe, or gratitude. Maybe both. We didn't need to say anything else. There was nothing left to figure out. The storm had passed, but the damage was done. Still, somehow, I felt lighter. Like the truth had made space for healing. In the days that followed, we both adjusted. He made plans to move out, to start supporting Lisa. My husband came back from his trip, unaware of how close things had come to unraveling. And I carried on, a little wiser, a little quieter, but at peace. Sometimes, what feels like love is just a reflection of loneliness. And sometimes, letting go is the most honest thing we can do. I'll always remember that moment, not for how it made me feel, but for how it taught me what not to ignore again.